I used to order delivery at least a few times a week. It was convenient, easy, and honestly, I never thought twice about it. But after what happened last summer, I always hesitate before hitting that place order button. It started out like any normal night. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted, and decided to order some sushi through a food delivery app. It was a little past 9 p.m., and I was home alone since my roommate was out for the weekend. The estimated wait time was about 40 minutes, so I threw on some music and started cleaning up a bit while I waited. About 30 minutes later, I got the "Your driver is on the way" notification. I checked the app and saw the driver's name was Tommy, driving a white Toyota. A few minutes later, I got another notification. "Your driver has arrived." I grabbed my phone and headed to the door, expecting the usual knock or message. But this time, nothing. I waited a few seconds, then peeked through the peephole. Tommy was standing there holding my food, but something about him immediately made me uncomfortable. He wasn't standing like most delivery drivers, casually waiting for me to grab my food and go. He was too close to the door, almost like he was listening. For a second, I thought maybe he was about to knock, but then I saw something that made my stomach turn. His eyes were locked on the peephole, like he knew I was looking. My breath hitched. I waited, hoping he'd just leave the food and go, but instead, he lifted his hand and placed it on the door, like he was feeling for movement on the other side. At this point, I was beyond freaked out. I wasn't about to open the door, so I decided to text him through the app instead. Me. "Hey, you can just leave the food by the door. Thanks." I watched as he pulled out his phone, looked at my message, and smirked. Then instead of leaving the food, he leaned in closer. I could hear him whisper something, but I couldn't make out the words. I felt sick. My hands were shaking as I typed another message. "Me. Please just leave it at the door." A few seconds passed. Then slowly he set the bag down, but he still didn't leave. He just stood there. Finally, after what felt like forever, he took a step back, but not before flashing one last grin at the peephole. Then he turned and walked away. I didn't open the door until I saw his car pull out of the parking lot. Even then, I grabbed my food as fast as I could and locked the door behind me. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. About an hour later, I was sitting on my couch when I heard it. A car pulling into my driveway. I frowned, my heart already starting to race. I hadn't ordered anything else, and I wasn't expecting anyone. I crept to the window and peeked outside. It was a white Toyota. Tommy's car. I felt my stomach drop. I watched in horror as he stepped out of the car, this time without a food bag. He just stood there, looking up at my apartment like he was debating something. Then, he started walking toward my door. I backed away, my hands shaking as I grabbed my phone. 911, I dialed as fast as I could, whispering to the dispatcher what was happening. Meanwhile, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching my door. Then, a knock. Soft at first, then louder. "Hey," his voice called from the other side. "You forgot to tip me." My blood turned to ice. I had tipped through the app. I knew I had. I told the dispatcher he was still outside. She told me to stay on the line and not open the door. I could hear him shifting his weight, like he was waiting. Then, suddenly, he jiggled the handle. I barely held in a scream. The dispatcher told me the cops were on their way, but at that moment, I thought he was going to force his way inside. Then, just as suddenly as he arrived, he he walked away. I heard his car door slam, his engine start, and just like that, he was gone. The police showed up about 5 minutes later, but there wasn't much they could do since technically he hadn't broken any laws. They suggested I report him to the delivery app, which I did immediately. The next day, his profile was gone. I don't know if he deleted it or if the app banned him, but I haven't seen his car since. I still order delivery sometimes, but now I never open the door right away. I've used food delivery apps for years, and I've had a few weird experiences. Missing items, mixed up orders, the occasional awkward interaction, but nothing that ever made me feel unsafe. That changed last year. It was a Saturday night, and I was dead tired from work. Cooking wasn't an option, so I ordered from my usual Thai place through a food delivery app. The estimated wait time was about 40 minutes, so I threw on some Netflix and relaxed. About 30 minutes later, I got the notification. Your driver is on the way. I checked the app and saw that my driver's name was Jared, driving a gray Honda. Seemed normal. A few minutes later, I got another notification. Your driver has arrived. I grabbed my phone and headed to the door. Normally, delivery drivers either knock or send a text when they drop off food, but this time, nothing. I peeked outside through the peephole. The parking lot was dimly lit, but I could make out a car idling near the entrance. The headlights were on, and I could just barely see the silhouette of someone sitting inside. I figured maybe he was double-checking the order or typing out a text, but a few minutes passed and still, nothing. I checked the app. It hadn't been marked as delivered yet. I refreshed a few times, growing uneasy. Was he lost? Having trouble finding my unit? I waited another minute, then decided to message him. Me. Hey, I saw you arrived. Should I come outside? No response. I waited, staring at my screen. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The car was still there. At this point, I started getting that feeling. The one that starts in your gut and tells you something is off. I called him. It rang twice before he declined the call. That was it. My heart started racing. Why would a driver decline a call from the person they're delivering food to? I looked out the peephole again. The car door opened. I backed away from the door instantly, my breath catching in my throat. I heard slow, steady footsteps approaching my building. I locked the deadbolt and grabbed my phone again, my hands shaking as I tried to decide what to do. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. A light knock, not a normal "here's your food" knock. This was too soft, too slow, like whoever was on the other side was waiting. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I just stood there holding my breath. Another knock. I was about to text him, telling him to leave the food at the door, when something else happened. The doorknob jiggled. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The knob turned slightly, like he was testing if it was unlocked. At this point, I knew he wasn't just some confused driver. He was trying to get in. My fight or flight instincts kicked in. I texted him, "Me. You can just leave the food by the door." I watched through the peephole as he stopped moving. For a moment, he just stood there. Then, slowly, he tilted his head to the side, like he had read the message and was thinking about something. And then, without saying a word, he turned and walked away. I waited until he was out of sight before cracking the door open. But my food wasn't there. He never left it. That's what sent chills down my spine. The whole time, he wasn't standing there debating where to put the food. He never had any intention of delivering it. I reported him to the app immediately, and by the next morning his profile was gone. I don't know if that means he was banned or if he just deleted his account. But I haven't ordered delivery since. I never thought I'd be scared of ordering food. I mean, how dangerous could it be? You order, they drop it off, you eat. Simple. But after this happened, I double-check everything before opening my door. It was a Friday night, and I was home alone, just trying to unwind from a long week. My boyfriend was out of town for work, and I wasn't in the mood to cook. So I ordered from a local burger place through a food delivery app. The estimated wait time was about 45 minutes. So I threw on some comfy clothes, put on a movie, and just relaxed. About 35 minutes in, I got the notification. "Your driver's on the way." I checked the app and saw my driver's name was Darren. He was driving a black Nissan Altima, and his profile had a decent number of reviews, so I didn't think much of it. A few minutes later, I heard a knock at the door. "Uber Eats." I got up without thinking. I was seconds away from opening the door when something made me pause. I hadn't gotten the "Your driver has arrived" notification yet. I froze, suddenly uneasy. Delivery apps are almost always accurate with their tracking, so I stepped back and grabbed my phone to check. The map still showed Darren 2 miles away. My stomach dropped. Maybe the app was just lagging. I decided to text him just in case. Me. "Hey, just checking. Are you here?" Someone just knocked and said Uber Eats. He responded almost instantly. "Darren." "No, still a few minutes away. Don't open the door." I felt my entire body go cold. I crept toward the peephole, my heart pounding. And that's when I saw him. The man outside was not Darren. Darren's profile picture showed a man in his 30s with a short beard. The guy at my door was much older, maybe mid-50s, with thinning hair and a heavier build. He wasn't holding a food bag. He wasn't holding anything. Just standing there, his face half hidden in the dim porch light. I backed away, barely able to breathe. Then, he knocked again. "Uber Eats," he repeated, but his tone was wrong, like he was forcing his voice to sound casual. I didn't respond. I didn't make a sound. And that's when he tried the doorknob. I nearly screamed. The handle jiggled, like he was testing if it was unlocked. I bolted to the kitchen and grabbed a knife, my hand shaking as I dialed 911. I whispered to the dispatcher, trying to stay as quiet as possible. Meanwhile, I heard another sound, a faint shuffling, like he was moving away from the door, but not leaving. I went back to the peephole, and that's when I saw him walking around the side of my house. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line and move to a room with a lock. I ran to my bedroom, locked the door, and waited, my heart about to explode out of my chest. A few minutes later, the actual Uber Eats driver arrived. I watched through my bedroom window as Darren pulled up, got out of his car holding a food bag, and froze. He was staring at something. Then suddenly he jumped back into his car, slammed the door shut, and sped off. Seconds later, I heard sirens. By the time the cops arrived, the fake delivery guy was gone. But they found something that still makes me sick to think about. A duffel bag had been hidden behind my garbage bins. Inside, duct tape, zip ties, a box cutter. Darren, the real driver, messaged me later that night. "Darren, I saw him. He was standing at the side of your house when I pulled up. I don't know what he was planning, but I didn't want to stick around and find out. Be safe. I have no idea who that man was, or what he wanted to do if I had opened the door. But now, I never answer the door without checking the app first.